From analog
Hi, Jim. You've a great signal up here. You're 5.9 plus.
to digital.
We are everywhere you want to be. This is the CQ Blind Pams Podcast.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. This is November Echo 5 Lima. And I'm going to do a little podcast on a thing that I get asked about all the time. Is SSH. Why you should do it and how you should do it. Well, to start with, why you should do it. There's so much stuff that can be modified from within the node itself. You can modify your courtesy tones, your hang times, your IDs. You can add custom announcements. There's so much you can change in there. You can set up IEXRPT. You can add more nodes to one Raspberry Pi. There's just immense amounts of things you can do. And this does not necessarily pertain to a clear node. A lot of stuff you can do from the clear node actual node screen, but a lot of it you cannot. So it will apply if you want to do any of those other things that I just mentioned. First of all, if you're running Windows from a Windows PC and you want to SSH into your node and change things, you'll have to have a program called PUTTY. In my opinion, that's the easiest one out there to use. There are several more that you can use. I prefer PuTTY, and I'm going to be using JAWS. For those of y'all that do not use JAWS, I hope it doesn't get on your nerves, but the same things apply to JAWS that will with NVDA. And they have another program called WinSCP, which that allows you to navigate your node just like you would in a tree or what do they call that? Windows File Manager. You can edit files, you can move files, rearrange files, but you can't do terminal commands actually on your node. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you, let's just say I want to SSH into my node. The first thing you'll have to do is go to your router and find out your node's IP address. It should be listed under devices, and I can't really go into that because so many routers do it so many different ways, but find where your devices are and find out your Pi's IP. If you did not change the host name, it would be listed. I think it's something like ALL Pi, something like that, Alarm Pi or something like that, and find that IP address. All right, and what you will do, I say you've downloaded PUTTY, you've got it installed. Let's see.
Windows M. P20.x 16 of 16.
All right, we're going to click on PuTTY.
Enter. PUTTY configuration dialog. Specify the destination you want to connect to host name, left parent or IP address, right parent, edit, alt plus N.
And what it's going to do is it's going to ask you for the host name or IP address. All of my nodes are set up with host names, but I usually just type in the IP address. So let's just say we're going to go to my repeater node, which is allstar node number 507296. So we're going to type in the IP address.
192.168.1.190.
All right, then you hit your tab key, and it's going to ask you for the SSH port number. If you're on a clear node, that'll be 22. If you're on a hand VoIP node, that will be 222. Unless you've went in your node and changed it to a different number. This repeater is still on 222.
Specify the destination you want to connect to port edit 22 alt plus P 222.
Okay, and then you'll hit enter. There are some more things in PuTTY that you can go through, but they're self-explanatory. Once you get the program up and running, you will be able to figure out what those are actually for. So we're going to hit enter there on the port number.
Enter. PUTTY login is colon.
It's going to ask you for login. All right, login on a hand VoIP is root.
ROOT.
You hit enter.
Root 192.168.1.19 OS password :
And you type in your node's password.
NE5L 3943 R 7.
Alright, you typed in the password there. Now you'll hit enter.
R2-3
Alright, that's going to bring you up to, on a ham VoIP node, it will bring, even on a clear node, no, he has it default to the command prompt. But that will bring you up to the administration menu. And you're going to have numbers there. And you can follow the menu. You know, it doesn't really read it very well. I just usually go count them down. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'll hit enter.
Starting shell prompt. Please type exit less enter greater or press less control greater D on the menu or return to the admin menu. Left bracket root 507296 DVS right bracket number.
Alright, that's got me at the root and the DVS directory because that's the last directory I was on. Alright, now in ham VoIP they have what they call a cron file, which is Linux. And that allows you to schedule different timed events that you want your node to do. It's a certain format. You'll have to learn the format. But right now you're at, I'm going to say a blinking cursor. I don't know if it's blinking or not. But you're at a command prompt. So, if you wanted to go to your cron, you would
CRON space TAD.
You type cron tab space dash E. And you would hit enter. Alright, now your cron tab there is in front of you. You have to be very careful there. If you mess that thing up, you have caused a lot of problems. So the best thing to do is not edit that unless you really know what you're doing. It's not hard to learn, but you know, once you learn it, you've got it. We're going to close the cron tab by Control X, and you'll hit nothing because we didn't change anything. Alright, now you're at your command prompt. Let's just say I wanted to edit my rpt.conf file, which that is your control file for your whole entire node. That's where everything that you want this node to do is laid out. So, what we'll have to do, it's in, let's see where we are right now.
Left bracket root 507296 DVS right bracket number.
Alright, we're at DVS, so we're going to go to, you have to do CD space slash. We're changing directory was what CD means. We're going to go to etc slash asterisk. That's the directory that your rpt.conf file is located in, and you're going to hit enter.
Left bracket root 507296 asterisk right bracket number.
Now, I don't like using Nano, but for this demonstration, I will. Nano is the editor built into Linux. So you'll type NANO space rpt.conf. When you hit enter, it's going to open up your repeater.conf file in front of you. It's like a long text file.
Enter. New NATO 2.5.3 file rpt.conf semicolon warning dash this file was automatically configured from a semicolon template file slash local slash etc slash asterisk underline tpl by te semicolon no dash config.sh script semicolon each time this script is run this file will be overwritten semicolon if you change anything in this file and run the no dash config.sh semicolon script it will be lost semicolon.
Okay, that is the very top line of your rpt.conf file. Anything in here with a semicolon before it is commented out, which means it will not run. So be very careful on what you change. Pay attention. Anything with a semicolon will not run. Anything without a semicolon is a command and it will run. Okay, that's how you get to your rpt.conf file in a Nano. I'm going to close it and show you WinSCP. We didn't change anything there. So it just lets you go back to the menu. Now I'm going to get out of here and go to WinSCP. It's a lot easier.
WinSCP list box C:\/ login preview 507291 3 of 4 new notification from WinSCP SFTP FTP web tab S3 and SCP client new version 6.3.1 was released tools button alt plus T manage button alt session file protocol read only edit SFTP.
Okay, now here
session host name read only edit 100
you have got all of your IP addresses set up in front of you that you have stored. And if you've never stored one, you're going to go up to
100, 100, 100, 100,
Come on, get up there.
100,
I've got several here.
192.168.1.102. 192.168.1.102.
Oh.
Escape. Win SCP. List view not selected. Intel. Type : file folder. Change : 1/1.
Why is it? Did it log on? Huh.
JAWS home manual.
That's crazy.
507296 etc / root 5072. Win SCP. Win SCP. List view not selected. Intel. Type : file folder. Change. Not selected for logs. Type : alt F4. Root 507296 etc /
Okay.
JAWS home
We're
manual.
going to load that
Windows
again
M,
because
W,
something,
Win 32 disk imager. W. Win SCP. 8
something happened there. Not real sure what it was.
Check for updates. Win SCP.
Check
Update
for
button,
updates.
Close button. Alt plus C.
Close.
Desktop. Folder view list view. Win SCP. 8 of 16. Win SCP. List
All right, now all of my nodes are up here in front of me. They're different IP addresses. If you've never set one up before, what you will do,
Level 0. New site.
you'll go up to New Site, leave your arrows there, and you'll
Close button.
tab.
Alt plus T. Manage button. Alt plus M. Session combo box. SFTP.
It's going to ask you for the session. SFTP is right where it needs to be. All right, here again, you're going to need your node IP address, the login, which would be root.
Session host name : edit.
Under host name, you would put the IP address of the node.
Session port number : edit 22.
Port number, you would put 22 or 222 or whatever your SSH port number is. Then you'll tab again.
Session username : edit.
And that's where you would put root, ROOT,
Session password : password edit.
and there you would put your node password that has been assigned to your node. Not necessarily the node that logs you onto Allstar. It's the one that was given to you or you made up yourself to log on to your node. Now if you tab again, it's going to
Session save button.
ask you to save, and you click save, and it's going to ask you, do you want to save the password, yes or no? I always do because nobody else gets on my computer. That way you can make one click and you're done. All right,
Session advanced ... button.
let's
Close button.
tab on over here.
Help button. Show login dialog on startup when the last session is closed. Checkbox checked. Alt plus S.
I would leave that box checked. Show login. The last session is closed. Yes, it'll carry you back to your different IP addresses.
Preview. New site 1 of 4.
All right, new site. We're still back on new site. Now I'm going to carry my arrows down to my 060 repeater. That's my repeater here in Mississippi.
060 repeater.
All right, there it is. I just went down there, and I'm going to hit enter.
Enter. 060 repeater dash win SCP. List view not selected. Intel. Type : file folder. Change : 1/4.
And what this is going to do, you're going to have two screens up there. You're going to have one screen, which is your local computer that you are actually typing on. And if you hit tab,
local dash 060 repeater dash win SCP. List view not C : backslash dash 060 repeater dash win SCP. List view not local dash 060
I was right to
repeater
start
dash win
with.
SCP. List view not selected.
And the last directory that you were in on that node is going to be right up there. See? That, and there's two screens. One is your local computer and one is going to be your Allstar node. You'll get the hang of that once you do it a couple of times. I'm going to hit the backspace and go all the way back to the root just to show you what I'm talking about. And you work this just like you do Windows File Explorer. All right, so say I want to go to the RPT again, which is in /etc/*. So I'm going to hit E.
Not selected, etc. Owner : root. Root. Type :
It's on etc. I'm going to hit enter.
Not selected. List 2. 5 of 23. Not selected. Owner : root.
All right, now I'm in that folder. Now I'm going to hit A for asterisk.
A, etc. dash 060 repeater dash win SCP. List view not selected. Owner : not selected. Asterisk. Owner :
Asterisk. That's where we are. You move your arrows to double check. Now you're in the asterisk directory. Now if you want to edit your rpt.conf file, you hit R till you get to rpt.conf.
R asterisk dash 060 repeat not selected rpt.conf owner : root
rpt.conf, and you hit enter.
All
right. Now this is where it gets fun. See if I can explain this to y'all where you can understand it. All right, this is your rpt.conf file. There's a lot of things in here that you can change to your liking. Some of them you have to be very careful with. Some of them you can do what you want to. If you'll read that file, most of the stuff in here is explanatory. And remember what I said. Anything with a semicolon is commented out. It will not run. Anything without a semicolon is a command, or it will run. So let's see what we've got up here at the top. It's going to tell you that anytime you make changes to the ham VoIP installation from the administration menu number 3, that it is going to be overwritten by templates, which is in another directory. So if you go back in there and say you want to change your node number on that menu, anything you do to this file here and several more files will be overwritten by template files. So you'll have to go back and edit it again. There is a way to fix that. I'll explain that in another episode. So let's see what we've got here.
Semicolon template file / local / etc / asterisk underline TPL by TE. Semicolon no dash config.sh script. Semicolon. Semicolon each time this script is run, this file will be overwritten. Semicolon if you change anything in this file and run the no dash config.sh. Semicolon script, it will be lost.
Okay, see, it told you it will be lost. All right, so we're going to tab on down here because a lot of this is just warnings and telling you make sure this, make sure that. So we're just going to skip on through this and get down to the nuts and bolts or the guts of it.
Semicolon Android. Semicolon assign.
There's a bunch of it here.
Semicolon.
I'm just hitting my down arrow.
Semicolon important node dash when changing node 1999 to a second node or.
Okay, that's a different thing. We'll get into that in just a second.
Semicolon. Semicolon.
Come on now.
Left bracket 507296 right bracket semicolon.
Okay, right at the top of this thing,
semicolon the first node definition.
It's going to say the first node definition. You will see it semicolon, so that's commented out. That means it's not going to run. It's just going to you just see it there on the screen. All right, it's going to ask you for your first node number.
Land.
Now all this is already done for you when you set your node up, but it's still good to know in case something breaks, and you'll know how to fix it.
Left bracket 507296 right bracket semicolon change this to your assigned node number.
You heard it. 507296. Change this to your assigned node numbers. Now keep in mind there's a semicolon in between the bracket and change this to your assigned node number. All right, that tells it what node number you're going to use.
Land. Semicolon channel driver settings.
All right, this is your channel driver settings. This tells the node what kind of audio device you're going to be using. Now on a ham VoIP node like this is a Raspberry Pi connected to a Kenwood TKR 850 repeater, and it's going to be USB, simple USB. See?
Semicolon define the channel driver to use it with. Semicolon example is radio channel driver.
Okay.
Semicolon Suedo channel driver dash channel equals dotty / sudo.
All right, Suedo, see, that's commented out.
Semicolon channel equals radio / 507,296.
See, that one's commented out because they don't use that driver anymore.
Semicolon channel equals simple USB / us.
All right, see, that one had no semicolon in front of it.
Semicolon example channel equals simple USB / us.
Simple USB / so that one had no semicolon. So that's the one that uses. Now there's more drivers down here.
Semicolon channel equals dotty / sudo.
All right, dotty / sudo. That is if you have no radio connected to your node, but you have like you want to use it as a hub node, which I do have around here, just a Pi sitting on a shelf. Patrick says hubs. Generally, that's what he's referring to. All right, let's get on down here. Now it's going to go to
semicolon receive and transmit audio.
Let's see.
Land. Semicolon there are 3 choices for the way to look up.
All right, it's going to ask you for the way to look up files. The best way to do that
Semicolon.
is already.
Land. Semicolon node underline lookup underline method equals DNS left parent default
We
right
don't
parent.
want DNS.
Semicolon uses Android DNS lookup. Land. Semicolon node underline lookup underline method equals file.
All right, file.
Semicolon uses
We don't
allstar
want
lookup.
file.
Semicolon. Land. Semicolon node underline lookup underline method equals local.
We don't want local.
Semicolon node underline land.
All right, let's see what it says our lookup method is. And this is just looking for node numbers from what I can gather, how to know who's there.
Node underline lookup underline method equals DNS.
All right, DNS is where it's set. All right, now the next thing we're going to go to is the duplex setting. And that can be 1, 2, 3, or 4. Excuse me, 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And duplex 0 will give you no courtesy tones, no hang times, no IDs, no telemetry whatsoever. And that's how we usually set a hub node. I mean, you don't hear nothing but the audio coming from the people who are talking on it. Now, duplex 1 is like clear nodes. It is a half duplex, means you cannot transmit and receive at the same time. You've got to wait for the tail to fall out before you can start transmitting. A duplex 2 is full duplex with hang time and audio, which is the way I run my repeater. It's full duplex repeater. 3, I'm not real sure about. It just says it's for a radioless node. I've never used that. 4, I'm the same way. I've never used that. So let's get on down into it here. And you go on down into that file, and it's going to have different Well, what happened to the computer? It just quit.
Plus.
Oh, turn
Unlock
that
PC
off.
cursor. Land. Semicolon plus audio level
All
settings.
right, see, I hit the plus key. I've got to take that out.
Land. Semicolon plus. Space. Plus.
All right, that's gone. You've got to be very careful. You really, really got to be careful because you can mess it up.
Dynamic equals -9.
All right, now there's different things in here. They're called, or they're named different stanzas.
Semicolon IRLP settings.
It's going to ask
Plus
you,
semicolon.
it's going to say this stanza has a thing, definition in the bottom of the file, which is correct, it does.
Erskine equals -3.
All right, you're going to have your, let me get back up where I was.
Semicolon function stanza as a reference to it. Semicolon define. Functions equals functions 507,296.
All right, functions, and then it's going to give a node number. That's telling you that those functions that are down in the bottom of this file are 4507296. You can make other stanzas, like if you wanted 2 nodes with different functions on the same pi, you would just have to change the node number. And down below it, everything's commented out, just telling you what it is.
Semicolon defines DTMF function digit sequences. A.
Define DTMF functions. All right.
Semicolon function lists for different sources. Semicolon phone underline functions equals functions 500.
Phone functions, I guess that's for if you're going to use the allstar portal. I'm not real sure. I've never fooled with that.
Link underline function. Land.
Link functions, those are there also. DTMF commands. Okay, then we're going to get a little bit farther down into the file now.
Telemetry equals telemetry 507,296.
All right, telemetry, and there's another stanza. So that's for the telemetry stanza that's farther on down in the file.
Semicolon contains definitions for telemetry tones.
Contains definition for telemetry tone. That's the way the stanzas go. It tells you what each different stanzas for, and there's several stanzas for different things.
Semicolon left pair. Semicolon land. Wait underline times equals wait dash times 500.
All right, wait times, you know, I'll show you that in a second, but it's still another stanza.
Semicolon semicolon allstar events equals events 500.
Events.
Land. Semicolon Echolink settings.
All right, then it's going to say Echolink settings. If you want to set up Echolink on your node, there's a certain way to do that. I'll put that in also in another file or another podcast. Easy way to do that. It's real simple.
Semicolon land. Erskine equals -3.
All right, IRLP.
Semicolon echo line RX.
Nope, I was
Erskine equals
wrong.
-3.
That's Echolink gain. That's where you can set your receive gain and your transmit gain. The defaults are fine. Don't fool with them unless you have to.
Erskine equals 3. Semicolon Echolink announcement mode.
Announcement mode, you can change that to whatever you want. Call sign and name are called just name.
Semicolon plus semicolon land.
Ooh, let me get that
Plus
plus out of there.
Plus tab. Plus land. Semicolon IRLP settings.
All right, IRLP, if folks are using that, you can also add that to your ham VoIP node and do it that way.
Semicolon land. Erskine equals -6.
All right, that's just your gain for IRLP.
Semicolon land. Semicolon audio level settings and DP.
All right, this is for your audio level settings for your telemetry, Allison or whatever her name is. And you'll hear it. It's going to give you the level for the audio.
Land. Telemetry equals 0.
Telemetry equals 0. So that means the volume of Allison is set at 0. Now you can bring that up or you can bring it down. You have to put a -1, -2, -3. Sometimes we have to do that on Sherry nodes to keep it from clipping. See, you'll see what it says here for when you're talking and she wants to say something.
Semicolon overall reduction in telemetry level. Telemetry equals -9.
All right, telemetry level equals -9. That is while you're talking or someone's talking, and it will drop the voice of Allison or whatever the heck her name is. All right, let's see what else we've got here.
Semicolon telemetry level reduction with signal. Land. Semicolon notch filter.
Notch filter. Okay, I'm sure y'all have heard Patrick talk about this. You can notch out frequencies that you do not want to hear. And if you'll listen to a GD77, sometimes you can hear it's got a roar in there with it. And you can add a notch filter there to knock that roar out. I usually do not use those because everybody here uses Yaesus or Kenwoods. And you don't have that problem, so there's no notch filter on mine.
Land. Semicolon notch equals 1000.
See, it had a semicolon in front of it, so RX notch equals, it's commented out, so it will not do anything.
Semicolon. Semicolon. Semicolon.
Let's see.
Land. Semicolon dial plan settings.
Dial plan settings, leave all of that alone unless you just specifically know what you're doing.
Context. Calorie. Context equals radio. Calorie equals repeater less 0. Semicolon is. Semicolon. Account code. Land. Semicolon ID settings.
All right, here's where your ID settings are. Now you can make your own ID files. I have, for my repeater. And it will tell you exactly what the format is, the bit rate, all that you need to do. But you can go down in this file.
Semicolon ID recording files must have extension GSM, UART, PCM. Semicolon RAW, no file extension is used. Semicolon all ID recording files should be sampled at 8KH. Land.
Okay. Here's your ID recording equals. There's your first one. I've got it commented out. If you uncomment that one, that repeater is going to ID every 10 minutes regardless of what happens. Even when you're talking, not talking, it's going to give your ID every 10 minutes. Now, if you go on down.
Semicolon main ID voice. Semicolon recording equals vertical bar NE5L/L.
All right. Then you're going to hear one that's going to say.
Semicolon recording equals vertical bar NE5L/L.
/L. All right, that is for CW. If you uncomment that one, it's going to give your CW ID every 10 minutes, regardless of what you're doing. With voice, without voice, whatever. It's going to ID every 10 minutes. Now listen here.
Semicolon main ID CW.
Right.
The talkover equals vertical bar NE5L/R.
Talkover equals blah, 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 whatever that is, NE5L-R. That is while you're talking or someone else is talking and the repeater needs to ID. It will send that out in CW over the voice, which is legal. I mean, that's what you need to do. And you can change that to whatever you want it to be, but just remember it's going to send it out in CW. All right, let's go down some more.
Semicolon, land. Bit recording equals /etc/*/local/ne5 lid.
All right, there's your ID. Now, if you uncomment that one like I have, you can make that a file of your own, or you can use the one that comes with HandVoip that it generates. That will ID every 10 minutes as long as there is activity. But when you finish talking, it will ID one more time at a 10-minute interval, and then nothing else until there's repeater activity. I hope that makes sense.
Land.
Let's go on down some more.
Semicolon time settings -milliseconds.
This is your time settings, and remember, all of this is done in milliseconds. Just pay attention to the file, and it will let you know what they're for.
Semicolon the default values for hang time, TX_timeout. Semicolon and ID interval time are semicolon 5 seconds left parent 5000 ms right parent. Semicolon 3 minutes left parent 180000 ms right parent and 5 semicolon respectively. Land. Hang time equals 500.
Hang time. All right. That is the time that the repeater is going to hang with a tail after the courtesy tone. So after it gives your courtesy tone, it's going to hang for 500 more milliseconds. Then the receiver's going to close, or transmitter's going to close.
Semicolon squelch tail hang time left parent and ms right parent. L hang time equals 100.
Now that is a hang time that you can set if you want to change to a different mode with some touch tones, and it'll only hang for 100 milliseconds, which is what most clear nodes and HandVoips default to. I've got mine a little longer because it's a repeater.
Semicolon is controls the length of the node hang time. Semicolon when the alternate hang timer is selected with. Semicolon the control operator function. TX_timeout equals 240000.
TX timeout 240000. That's how long your repeater will let you transmit, or your node will let you transmit before it times out.
Semicolon changed from bottom V1.3. Item equals 6000000.
Okay, ID time. That means every 10 minutes is your ID time. On GMRS, we change that to 15 minutes.
Semicolon ID every 10 minutes. Polity equals 30000.
Login window. Johnny Smith button.
No.
Pro Tools. Mix. SSH.
I had the Mac kick back on, or screensaver or something.
Semicolon. Polity equals 30000. Semicolon the polity setting specifies the number of. Semicolon.
All right, that's going to specify the number of milliseconds to wait after the unkey before it starts its ID, from what I can gather.
Semicolon. 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 Semicolon.
Let's go
Semicolon.
past
RX underline
that.
timeout equals 3000000.
All right, that's the RX timeout.
Semicolon timeout on hardware codes used to avoid hang-up. Semicolon of circuits with code lockup.
All right, that's I'm not real sure. I don't really know how to explain that one. Maybe somebody else can explain that to you.
RX semicolon RX underline cost loop equals 20.
That's 20. That, you know, at the end of the things you might hear some go with a squelch. That stops that, and some more things in here will do that too.
Semicolon minimum semicolon land.
Okay, now we're through that. Now we're going to move on to another stanza, and let's see if you can grasp this.
Semicolon courtesy tone mapping.
Courtesy tones. All right, in ham VoIP and clear nodes, courtesy tones are defined by frequency, then another frequency, then the length of the tone, and then the volume of the tone. There's 4 boxes there. So let's just say you wanted a courtesy tone to sound like a NASA beep. Beep. All right, that's only one tone going for, I'm going to say 150 milliseconds. So down at the bottom where you make your courtesy tones, but a lot of these are already made and they're built in, you would type a frequency, then a comma, and if you wanted another frequency mixed with that 3000, say you type 3000 comma, if you wanted like 1500 mixed with that 3000, you type 1500, then you type a comma. Then the length, you would put 150, comma. Then the volume, most of them are set at 3000. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But this one has got
Unlinked equals CT1.
unlinked CT, what is it, 1?
Unlinked equals CT1.
CT1. All right. That's what you're going to get when you are not connected to any other node in period. I mean, when you're just not connected to anything. That's the courtesy tone you'll hear.
Semicolon sent when not connected to another node. Remotech equals CT3.
Remote base. I do not have a remote base, but that's what would be transmitted if you were connected to a remote base.
Semicolon land. Semicolon the link contact command can be used. Semicolon land. Semicolon link contact equals CT2.
Unlinked equals CT2. I think that's what it said. Yeah.
Land. Semicolon link contact equals CT2.
No. Linked. That's what you'll hear from a node. When you're connected to it, that's what you're going to hear when the node link unkeys. Oh. Now, I have that commented out because I do it a different way. We're going to see this here in just a second.
Semicolon sent when a network user unkeys this.
When a network user unkeys, correct.
Semicolon land. Link contact equals I underline node underline number CT4.
All right, now we're going back to down a little bit more of the same thing, and there's a file there. It says by node number.
Link contact equals I underline node underline number CT4.
All right, you uncomment that, and you go over there to the side of it, and it's got CT4. That's if you haven't specified a node number with a certain courtesy tone, which I have. So you go down.
Semicolon use this method to send a distinct courtesy. Semicolon tone based on node number. If node semicolon not land node 507291 equals CT13.
See, I've got node 507291 equals CT13. So when my hub node unkeys, it transmits courtesy tone 13. Let's see what else is in here.
Semicolon define node number to map tone for.
Right. So that's the only one I've got there.
Semicolon distinctive courtesy tone multiple nodes. Semicolon land. Semicolon link settings dash values in seconds.
All right. This is going to show you your link values in seconds. We're just going to skip on past that right now. That's getting beyond the
Semicolon
scope of this podcast.
Land. Semicolon remote settings dash values in seconds.
Remote values and settings. All right, we're going to skip past that one because that's a little bit
Semicolon
things that
semicolon
you really
semicolon
most folks are not going to fool with.
Semicolon land.
All right,
Semicolon misc.
go back up.
Land. Semicolon misc settings.
Miss settings. These are just some different settings that you can change. It's going to have.
Land. Parrot equals 0 semicolon 1 time parrot mod with DTMFA9.
All right, you can do a parrot test with A9, DTMFA9. That will play your voice back to you.
Land. Semicolon comp equals your connect program.
All right, I have nothing there on the Connect program.
Semicolon land. Semicolon conf equals slash us slash local slash spin slash supermon slash slaughter 1 semicolon use this line for supermon. Land. Semicolon disk equals your disconnect program.
All right, I have nothing under disconnect. See, there's a semicolon there, so it's commented out.
Semicolon. Land. Semicolon disk equals slash us slash local. Land. No kick equals 0.
Okay, no unkey equals 0. If you change that to 1, whenever you unkey, you will not hear a courtesy tone, but you will hear a courtesy tone when the network unkeys. So you change that to 1. 0 or 1. 0 is off, 1 is on.
Semicolon disable chorus tones left parent equals 1 right parent. Hold off equals 1.
Hold off telemetry. That means if you do not want any telemetry while the network's talking or you're talking, you change that to 1. If it's on 0, it'll just spout it out whenever it wants to, and that can mess up some things. And if you don't really know what you're doing, having it on 1 can mess up some things. So you really got to pay attention.
Semicolon default equals 2.
Telemetry default. All right. 1 or 0 is no telemetry at all, which means no Allison. 1 is everything. I mean, you'll hear everything that happens, except you can't hear incoming connections anymore. They stopped that, which I wish they would not have.
Semicolon 0 equals voice telemetry off, 1 equals on. Semicolon 2 equals only your telemetry actions.
And number 2 equals only your telemetry actions. If you connect, disconnect, force an ID, you will hear that. Which is, I think that's how most people do theirs. They put it on 2, where they won't hear it all the time.
Semicolon 10 minutes and 1 minute. Beaconing equals 0.
Beaconing equals 0.
Semicolon when set to 1 will send the repeater ID at. Semicolon the interval regardless of whether. Semicolon there was repeater activity or not.
See, that's where you get back into that ID file up top, whether you want the ID constantly every 10 minutes or not.
Land. Semicolon funker equals star.
All right, and here it's function equals star. You can change this. We'd had some problems here with some guys messing with our GMRS repeaters, so we changed that lead-in character from star to a 0. So you have to do, if you want to connect, you'll do a 0-3 instead of a star 3. Very easy to do, and you can change the in character too from pound to whatever you want it to be.
Semicolon command. Semicolon
It's going down here.
Semicolon propagate underline font equals yes.
All right, this is where you get into whether you want DTMF commands propagating through the whole system or not. Be careful with that unless you know what you're doing.
Semicolon digits pass along.
Let's see. I hope this is not boring. I'm sure it is because it's taking longer than I thought it would.
Land. Semicolon x nodes equals x nodes dash different.
I'm not sure what that is. That's got something to do with other nodes. I'll have to read up on that one.
Semicolon land. Semicolon archivator equals some dash directory.
Alright, this is if you want to record your audio. Be real careful with that. It eats up lots and lots of space. So you really don't need to do that unless there's maybe an emergency or something and you're running a net that you have to keep copies of, or it's a very bad emergency or something that you have to keep a record of. You really don't want to do that.
Land. Semicolon startup underline macro equals star 7.
Alright, startup macro. This is a macro that you can uncomment that and you can put a DTMF command in there. And it will run whatever you put in there. Now on my hub node, I've got it, well on my repeater I've got it set to automatically connect to my hub node. If the repeater should reboot, it will automatically go back and you would uncomment that and you'd put star 73507291. And every time your node reboots, it will automatically dial that. And here below it,
semicolon startup, semicolon time and seconds to wait before it, semicolon startup underline macro underline delay equals 5.
Startup macro delay equals 5. All right, that's going to give you how long that it waits after the node restarts to initiate that macro. I would run it somewhere up to around 20, 25, maybe even more if you have slow internet.
Semicolon land, semicolon tail message.
Tail message. Alright, this gets into any tail message. It's very, very useful if you're using Skywarn Plus. That's going to be another video how to install that on an actual Raspberry Pi node, not a clear node. So this is where you set what message you want that thing to play, how often you want it to play it. You set all that there. Just be careful.
Semicolon Full message time.
Pay
Semicolon,
attention,
play a
see?
Full message time equals 1800000.
It'll play a tail message every 1800000 milliseconds. Remember, all of this is in milliseconds, unless it specifically says.
Semicolon try. Tail message list equals /tmp/skywarn plus /wx tail.
See, it's going to ask you where the file is that you want it to play. That was the Skywarn Plus tail message.
Semicolon list of messages to be played for tail message. Land. Semicolon *** status reporting ***.
Then you go down and it's going to say status reporting. If you wanted your node stats reported, see, a lot of this is done when you set up the menu, when you first initialize your node.
Land. Semicolon uncomment the following two status lines to report the. Semicolon status of your node to stats.allstarlink.org.
Okay, so you would uncomment it if you wanted to, and you would comment it if you didn't.
Land. Status underline program equals /etc /* local /send underline node underline stats.sh.
All right, there's a script file that it sends the status.
Land. Semicolon begin second node.
All right, now this next node here is a pseudo node, which means there's no radio connected to it. It's a private node. You can do anything with that node you want to do with it, but it's a private node. Most DV switch nodes are on that node number, and all private nodes are below 1999, or below 2000 rather. Anything below 2000 is going to be considered a private node unless you specifically tell it not to be.
Semicolon second node shown as a pseudo node.
See, it's a pseudo node. Alright, I'm going to go on to the bottom of this because that is an exact carbon copy of what we just did. Okay, when you go through that node, you can go down to, and it's you will hear it, you'll find it. Just take your time till you get used to where you are and what you're doing. You'll hear it say
Land. Semicolon end of second node.
end of second node. Now remember earlier when I was talking about stanzas, this is where all the stanzas come into play. This is where everything up there that it told you, like telemetry, functions, this is where all of those definitions are to fill in those nodes. You don't fill them in, they're filled in down at the bottom. So we're going to start at the top of the bottom, if that makes any sense, past both of the node stanzas, going toward the bottom of the rpt.conf file.
Land. Semicolon Morse code parameters.
All right, Morse code parameters. This is where you tell it what you want the speed, frequency, and volume of your IDs or any Morse code messages, CW messages that you might have. See?
Semicolon. Left bracket Morse 507,296 right bracket.
It tells you what node number that's for. Now you can change that, put another stanza in there and change the number like I said up top, and you would have two different frequencies on two different nodes.
Land. Speed equals 20.
Alright, speed is 20.
Frequency equals 600.
Frequency equals 600.
Amplitude equals 4096.
Amplitude is 4096. Alright, that's pretty loud, but if that's the way you want it, that's great. I like mine that way because I want it to be heard. Now that is for a Morse code message that you would just want to play. Now your next one's for your ID.
Bit frequency equals 600.
ID frequency is 600.
Bit amplitude equals 1024.
1024. See, I've got it a little bit lower because it usually IDs only CW while someone is talking.
Land. Semicolon control states.
Control states. You really don't need to worry about this unless you run a repeater, unless you specifically know what you're doing, because you can make the repeater do different hang times, different all kind of things with that. Just until you really know what you're doing, I would not fool with that.
Land. Left bracket control states right bracket. Semicolon 0 1 equal land. Semicolon schedules.
Schedules. Here you can define schedules for the node to run at different times. Some people like that, running the schedules. I prefer the cron jobs. That's just me.
Land. Left bracket schedule 507,000.
So there's your
Semicolon
number.
Semicolon. Land. Semicolon events.
Events. It's just about the same thing. You can have it run different things at different times. I never use those.
Land. Left bracket events 507,000.
See, there's your node number.
Land. Semicolon commands for fob codes indicator unavailable. Semicolon. Land. Left bracket events 1999 right bracket.
And see, now it's got my events for the node 1999, which is my DV switch DMR node number.
Blank. Semicolon functions.
All right, now here's all of your functions. If you ever wanted to know what a function is for, a DTMF command, that you can either go look here, because there's not a really good, there's not anything really good on the internet about it. So this is going to show you all of your DTMF commands.
Semicolon disconnect link equals *1 less node greater. 1 equals island 1. Semicolon monitor link equals *2 less node greater. 2 equals island 2. Semicolon connect link transfer equals *3 less node greater. 3 equals island 3. Semicolon remote command equals *4 less node greater. 4 equals island 4. Semicolon execute macro equals *5 less macro number greater. 5 equals macro 1. Blank. Semicolon system status.
All right, system status. There's just more commands.
70 equals island 5. Semicolon disconnect permanently connected link equals *71 less node greater. 71 equals island 11. Semicolon connect link permanent monitor equals *72 less node greater. 72 equals island 12. Semicolon connect link permanent transfer equals *73 less node
All
greater.
right, y'all get the idea of that. Let's get through this.
73. Semi. 81. Semi. 8. Blank. Semicolon auto patch must be configured to work. Semicolon auto patch up. 61 equals auto patch up. Context. Semicolon auto patch down.
That's for your dial plan. That's how you can make your own custom things that you want it to do. It's relatively simple. You just have to read up on it and learn how to do it.
60 equal. Blank. Semicolon example play a node announcement.
All right, it'll give you an example of how to play a node announcement. Now, keep in mind you'd have to make the file yourself that you wanted it to play, and that's not complicated either. At least it isn't for me, because I like doing that kind of stuff.
Semicolon audio file must be allstar compliant. Semicolon 920 equals locale play / etc / asterisk / local / some dash file.
So you're telling it 920, and then you're telling it, you write that out, 920 equals CMD, comma, wherever and whatever the file name is. You never use a file extension. Like you don't put W or .wav or .mp3, because you have to convert them all to ULA or UAL or whatever it is.
Blank. Semicolon 989 equals cop 4. 9. Blank. 99 equals cop 6. Semicolon
So it's
DV
just
number.
more commands.
Semicolon DV switch.
All right, now here's my DV switch. That's going to be another video of how to install that. So we're going to go on past that.
Blank. 05 equals CM. Semicolon some of these are commented out. Semicolon command and note their choice.
Okay, now a lot of these down here, some of them may be commented out. So this is where this comes in with semicolons and not semicolons. It's what you want and what you don't want.
Semicolon note that halt in the system remotely would require. Semicolon. Semicolon. A1 equal.
All right, let's see.
A1 equals CMD / local / spin / save.sh507296 semicolon say local IP radio.
All right, that's what it said.
Blank. A1 equals CMD /
A1. Then it writes out the command that that will be performed when you do an A1.
Blank. A3 equals CMD / local / spin / public.sh507296 semicolon say public IP radio.
Say public IP to radio.
Blank. A5 equals CMD / local / spin / share.sh semicolon say registration status.
Say registration status. It'll tell you if your node is registered or not.
Blank. Semicolon say DNS node lookup. A7 equals auto patch up. Context equals saves. Blank. A9 equals cop 55 semicolon one time ferret. Blank. D1 equals CMD / local / spin / alt.sh507296 semicolon alt system left parent Linux total shutdown right parent.
See, that will shut your whole system down, but you have to have a power cycle to recover that. You can't reboot from that.
Blank. B3 equals CMD / local / spin / reboot.sh507296 semicolon reboot the system.
All right, B3 reboots the whole system, which I use on occasion.
Blank. B. Blank. Semicolon update handler with voice feedback.
All right, let's get on down here.
834 equals CMD /
These are all your
800 blank. Semicolon
Sky
sky
1
describe
Plus
blank.
commands.
Semicolon sky describe DTMF commands.
I see there's Sky Describe. We'll get into that one
800
at another date.
blank. Semicolon blank. Semicolon macros.
All right, these are macros. They're written out a little different, but they do the same thing as DTMF commands do. They're just formatted a little bit different.
Blank. Left bracket macro 507,296 right bracket.
See, there's your node
One
number.
blank. Blank. Semicolon telemetry courtesy tone definitions.
All right, telemetry courtesy tone definitions. This is where I was explaining to you earlier about the frequency, length, and volume. When this is going to say CT1, so whatever this is written out as down here, if you tell it to use CT1 on a certain event, this is how it's done. Hang on now, this might confuse some folks.
Blank. Left bracket telemetry 507,296 right bracket.
See, there's your node number.
Semicolon. CT1 equal. CT.
All right.
C. Blank.
We're going to take this letter by letter. It's going to say CT1 equals.
C. T. 1 equals.
Equals. All right. Now after this, is what's going to tell it what you want it to do. You have to put a
Vertical bar. T.
vertical bar,
Tango.
then a T. That's telling it that you want to use a tone. And it's going to make the tone for you. Alright, so let's see what else is on across. We're going over to the right. This is how you actually make the tone definition.
Left parent.
Left parent.
3. 5. 0. Comma.
Alright, that's at 350. That's the frequency that the tone is. And it's got a comma. Then your next one's going to be another frequency if you want one. If you don't, you put a 0.
0.
See, there's a 0 there. Then you put a comma. Now this is going to be the length of how long you want the tone to be.
1. 0. 0. Comma.
Alright, 100 milliseconds. Then it's got a comma. Now we're going to go with the volume.
2. 0. 4. 8.
2048.
Right parent.
Then you put a right parentheses. That's how they make that tone. Now let's go on to the, let's see. Well, now this one's got it. You can have as many tones there as you want. That's the first tone in that sequence. So you put a left parentheses, frequency, comma, length, comma, volume, then a right parentheses. Then you have to put another
Left parent.
left parentheses. You're going to start with frequency, length, and volume again. So let's see what is tacked on to the end of that 350 tone.
5. 0. 0. Comma. 0. Comma. 1. 0. 0. Comma. 2. 0. 4. 8. Right parent.
All right, see, there's another tone. So that means you're going to hear 2 tones so far. I think there's another one. So, you know, parentheses, frequency, length, volume, right parentheses. And you do a left parentheses.
Left parent.
Let's check the last frequency.
6. 6. 0. Comma. 0. Comma. 1. 0. 0. Comma. 2. 0. 4. 8. Right parent. Blank.
All right, so that's the end of that one. There's 3 tones in there. It's 350, and I think it was 5 something, then it was 6 something. So he's going bloop, bloop, something like that. Now let me see if I can. Now that's a courtesy tone 1, and there's
0.
bunch of courtesy tones in here, and there's a lot that
Right
you
there.
can
8.
download from the internet and add, or you
5.
can build your own. I usually just build my
1.
own.
T.
That way I
C.
can.
Blank.
All right, so let's see.
CT1 equals vertical bar T left parent 350, 0, 100, 2048 right parent left parent 500, 0, 100, 2048 right parent left parent 660, 0, 100, 2048 right parent.
All right, see, that was courtesy tone 1. Now let's see what 2 is. 2 is different.
CT2 equals vertical bar T left parent 660,880,150, 2048 right parent.
Why it says it like that, I don't know. But there's only 1 tone there. It only has 1 parentheses, frequency, length, tone, then parentheses. Parentheses. And then you go all the way down.
CT70, CT80, CT13, remnants equals / local /
Okay.
CT13 equals vertical bar 8.
CT13. They only
CT8 equals vertical
there's
bar
only
T left parent
8 that come with the
700,
ham boy,
150,
but
2048
there's a
right
lot
parent,
you can
2048
add.
amplitude.
You can get them from the clear node, or you can get them from the internet already made up. It's fun to make them yourself, though. All right, let's go down one more. This is where it gets interesting. The part I enjoy about it.
CT13 equals vertical, remnants equals / local /
Remote
/sound / equals semicolon.
TX. All right, and it's got a tone beside it too, just like you were making a courtesy tone. Or you can have your own file there. You just will not put the vertical bar T. You will just put / directory / file name. This is going to happen when you unkey. It's strictly you. Nobody's going to hear it but you. When you unkey, you know, on the clear nodes, or all the other ones go dee-doot, which drives me insane. So I had to change that. You can change that to any frequency, length, volume that you want. You can string as many together as you want. Now that's remote TX. That's when you unkey your radio. That's what you're going to hear. If you're linked to something.
Remote equals vertical bar T left parent 1209, 0, 50, 24, comma, 2,
Let me get back where I was.
comma,
How did I get way over here?
N, O, M, T, O, M, E, R, blank, E, M, O, N, Equals.
All right, that's remote monitor. If you're monitoring a
R.
node
Land.
and that node unkeys, that's the courtesy tone you're going to hear when you're in monitor mode.
Remote equals vertical bar T left parent 12. Remnants equals slash. Mode equals vertical bar T left parent
Mode.
900 3200 2048 right parent.
That's for the command mode. That's what you're going to hear when you're in remote control mode for another node. Let's see.
Complete equals vertical bar T left
Complete.
parent 1000, 0,
That's
100,
what you're going to
2048
hear
right parent 0, 0, 100,
when
0
you
right parent left
complete
parent 1000, 0,
connecting
100,
to
2048
another
right parent.
node. It'll give that courtesy tone, then it'll say connected to such and such.
Patch up equals RPT slash cal proceeding.
Patch up. That's what you're going to hear when you're doing a patch up call with DV switch and stuff like that.
Patch down equals RPT slash
When
cal
patch
terminated.
goes down, there's the tone you'll hear there.
Land.
All right, that's the end of that. Those are a lot of cool features that you can change.
Semicolon wait times.
Wait times. Okay, this is going to tell you how long your node is going to wait before it actually does the telemetry, which is courtesy tones or the voice.
Land. Semicolon. Semicolon. This section allows wait times for telemetry events to be adjusted. Semicolon. A section for wait times can be defined for every repeater left parent node right parent. Semicolon. Land. Left bracket wait dash times 507,296 right bracket.
See, there's your node number again. You can also make another stanza for this for another node if you desire.
Telemetry equals 600.
All right, telemetry equals 600. It's going to wait 600 milliseconds before it does any telemetry whatsoever. You can change that. I changed mine down pretty low because it's a repeater and I like it that way.
Bit equals 600.
ID. It's going to wait 600 milliseconds before it IDs with telemetry or CW.
Unkey wait equals 200.
Unkey wait equals 200. Now I dropped mine down from 800 because I do not like that long wait time from when I unkey till I hear the courtesy tone. I dropped mine down to 200. Now when I'm in severe weather mode, I've got it to where it'll drop down to 0. So immediately when someone unkeys, it beep, it gives me the tone, then it gives the hang time for the repeater. Makes everything a little bit faster, and everybody knows when everybody unkeys, and there's no walking on each other or talking over each other.
Call term equals 2000.
Call term, that means that's going to be how long it waits before it terminates a patch call, if that makes any sense.
Link
Login
K equals
window,
200.
Johnny Smith button. Login window.
Let me
Johnny
set
Smith.
this.
Go tools. Mix.
Get that Mac. I don't know why. I guess screensaver's popping up.
Call term link K equals 200.
Link unkey wait. Now that is going to be, if you're listening to a link and they unkey, that is going to be the length of time from when they unkey till you hear the courtesy tone. I've got that set at 200. That seems to work out pretty well. And let's see what else we've got here.
Semicolon local node routing.
All right, this is your local node routing. This is how a lot of things are messed up.
Land. Semicolon define local nodes.
Define your local nodes. All right, here you're going to have,
Land. Left bracket nodes right bracket.
it's going to say nodes.
Semicolon nodes if you are using automatic updates for allstar link nodes. Semicolon no allstar link nodes should be defined here. Only place a definition. Semicolon for your local left parent within your LAN right parent nodes and private left parent off of allstar. Semicolon link right parent nodes here. Land. 507296 equals radio at 127.0.0.1/507,296. None.
Okay, you really don't need to change much of that unless you are using a different IAX port than 4569. If you do have a different IAX port, you need to put, after the IP address there, put a colon and then the port number, whatever it might be. That's all you need to change there. Then below this one's going to be your local, your private node.
1998 equals radio at 127.0.0.1:4569/1998. None.
Okay, so 4569 is after that. That's telling it where you want it to go because it's not defined anywhere else. So you had to tell it you wanted to use that IEX port. And guys, basically that is your rpt.conf file, and that might be a reason why you want to SSH into a node. And I'm going to do one tomorrow. As I've got some things I've got to do here pretty quick on installing Skywarn Plus from the GitHub page through SSH. and we'll get that one uploaded as soon as we can. I hope that I did this in a way that you could understand it. If not, I do apologize. I'm always open for questions. A lot of folks here have my phone number. If anyone needs to call, please do. If I'm where I can, I will answer the phone and try to answer your questions. If not, I'm good on QRZ. The email is good. You're welcome to text anytime or email or call. You know, if I'm where I can help you, I certainly will. So everyone have a great evening. And again, I hope this is where you can understand it and it is some benefit to a blind amateur radio operator. Just be very careful. Take your time until you know what you're doing, because you can really, really mess your node up to where it is non-functional. So everyone take care. 7-3. NE5L clear.
Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and visit www.blindhams.com.